I didn't quite get done with the four things at the bottom, so I'll read them to you. In 18, what are the four things we need for restoration? Israel needed for restoration. The people must speak the truth. The people must execute true justice and peace, and we talked about this. People must not think evil or plot evil, and people must not swear falsely. Okay. Now, it was talking about the nation of Israel at that point in time, but we didn't quite get done with that. How does it apply to me today? Well, those four things are still are still needed. If I have wandered off, gotten myself a briar patch, and I'm trying to get back and restore my relationship with God. Number one, I have to speak the truth. I have to admit that I wandered off. I have to admit that I strayed. I have to admit that I want Him to forgive me in order for Him to restore His relationship. I have to accept His justice and His peace. Because a lot of times when we are being rebellious, there's going to be some discipline involved. And it's the same for us as that guy that stole our air conditioning units we talked about last week. In order for justice, there has to be a price paid. If there's no price paid, I'm likely going to think I got off and got away with it, and I'm going to be a little liberal about it. And God knows there needs to be justice. We should not think evil or plot evil. A lot of times we don't want to admit the part we played in it. Usually when somebody wants to, there was a lady who used to go to church here, didn't go to church here anymore, but she was at odds with her son. And she wanted me to sit down and talk to her son. And I said, I'll be happy to sit down and talk to your son. When will you be available? Well, why do I need to be there? I said, in any kind of a conflict like this, everybody plays a part. I'm innocent. I haven't done nothing. Okay, well, I knew she had. I'd already heard her son's side of it. So, and he probably exaggerated it a little bit, but you know, there has to be, at some point, we have to accept God's discipline in order that there be peace. And then we should not swear falsely like she did about her son. So, that brings us to 18:23. Somebody read 18 to 23.
Eight, 18 through 20. Okay. The word of the Lord Almighty came to me. This is what the Lord Almighty says. The facts of the 4th, 5th, 7th, and 10th month will become joyful and glad occasions and happy festivals for Judah. Therefore, love, truth, and peace. This is what the Lord Almighty says. Many people and the inhabitants of many cities will yet come, and the inhabitants of one city will go to another and say, let us go at once to entreat the Lord and seek the Lord Almighty. I myself am going. And many peoples and powerful nations will come to Jerusalem and seek the Lord Almighty and entreat Him. This is what the Lord Almighty says. In those days, 10 people from all languages and nations will take firm hold of one Jew by the hem of his robe and say, let us go with you, because we have heard that God is with you.
Okay. I forgot to hand out the master for the day. All right, who's speaking?
Lord.
Lord speaking. The Lord came to Zachariah, and he spoke to him. I'm sorry.
He said he's in this book a lot. It's a returning character.
Yeah, that begs the question.
Returning
How does he speak to you? He's in the book a lot. Says a lot of things in the book directly to me. Sometimes I'm a little aggravated at something, and it just builds and builds, and finally he says, "Stop it! Just stop it!" That anthill's becoming a mountain, and you're not going to be able to handle it. But we don't like to be disciplined. We don't like to hear that. He thinks that's it. Now, 19A, I forgot to put the question here. But what's going on in 19A, the first part of the, it names 4 feasts. Now, what do we know about feasts in the Bible? 2 things we know about feasts in the Bible. Let me tell you. Number 1, they celebrate joyous events. And number 2, they celebrate catastrophes. These 4 feasts that are listed here in these months, they are celebrating, they're not celebrating, but they're mourning 4 catastrophes that happened in history. One was when Nebuchadnezzar set siege to the walls, and they were locked up in their city for a year before he finally breached the walls and came in. One was when Solomon's temple was torn down and all the gold and silver was carried off. One was when the Assyrians attacked Jerusalem and breached the walls. And fourth one slips me right now, but it was a catastrophe. In Isaiah, the first part of Isaiah, when they ganged up in front of the walls, and then they beseeched the Lord in mourning. And in the middle of the night, the king just packed up his army and disappeared, went back home. Those are 4 periods of mourning. There are 4 things that Israel wanted to remember, and that God wanted them to remember because it happened because of them. Most of the time when bad things happen to God's children, it's because God's children are being ornery. My grandson, I'd never heard my daughter raise her voice to my grandson, but she was mad at him. The rule is you can go play, but you tell me before you do, because I may need to find you. Well, he went running off with his friends at the school, and they were somewhere playing football or something. And she looked around, couldn't find her, had to take my granddaughter to a volleyball game at the deaf school. Then she had to go back to the school and find Reed, and then go back to the volleyball game to pick up the daughter. She missed the volleyball game, and she was ticked. She was not happy. Well, there's been days when God's felt like that with me too. I was supposed to do something. I knew I was supposed to do something. I didn't do it. And I could just feel the tension between, it was like I was praying, but nobody was listening anymore. The communication, it was like talking into a phone when there's no doubt. You're not connected. And a lot of times I'm not connected because of me. Is it just me?
No.
I Mason didn't respond to
Yes.
But we get in those situations. We get focused on the things of the world, and they bite, and then we want to bite back. And God says, "Let me handle it. You can't handle it, and I can." All right. So they are days of fast and mourning. and they're going to be eliminated. And in 19b, how are they going to be eliminated? They're going to be feast of joy. What changed? If you read 19b there, the day of a day when many people will be reconciled and seek the Lord, a picture of the Messiah's coming kingdom. Jesus Christ will be here. His kingdom will be established. The 1,000-year reign will be in effect. We will be living in a world of peace. It'll be a flourishing garden. We looked at it a couple of weeks ago. There'll be no sickness. There'll be no enemy. So Jesus Christ will be here. What else changed? What did Jesus do before he starts his 1,000-year reign? Revelation 9.
Was it he'll put the devil in the pit?
Yep. The pit is open, and the devil and the Antichrist and the anti-prophet, the false prophet, and the harlot of Babylon, they all go in. All their followers go in. It's peace. We don't have demons wandering around on the earth. We don't have, I don't know what's going to happen to Bigfoot. We're not.
He's still hiding. I was going to say he'll.
We're not going to have all these negative influences behind us whispering in our ears. We're not going to have all this tension and all this. We're not going to have the options. What? We're not going to have cell phones. Somebody's spoken. It's okay. Don't worry about it. All those things are going to change, and we're not going to have to deal with them anymore. We're just going to be at peace. All those nasty people who were nasty in my life for 55 years, they're not going to be there. Or they're going to be repentant and saved, and they're going to have a whole new attitude to things. The world is going to be a totally different place than it is today. There was some interesting things happened in the Middle East this year, and we are on a freight train out of control, headed for the return of Jesus Christ. It is coming upon us. When Jesus said, "This generation that sees me return, Israel returns to the promised land, will also see my second coming," he was talking about me. I was born in 1946. They returned home in 1927, and it's going to be my generation. And you guys will get to enjoy it too. Everybody's going to be reconciled, and it says in 15b, they're going to seek the Lord. Many people, a picture of the Messiah's coming kingdom. Whole attitude's going to be different. Now, Satan's going to be locked up, and all of his servants are going to be locked up, and all of his little demons are going to be locked up, and we're not going to have to deal with any of that. There's not going to be one sitting on each shoulder, a guardian angel on one shoulder and a demon on the other saying, okay, how does 1,000-year reign end?
They open it back up, the pit back up for 1,000 years.
They open the pit up again. And how long will it be open?
Short season.
Short season. Season is 3 months. Be a short season. In the space of about a season, what happens to all this peace? Armageddon happens all over again. The world masses in the valley of Armageddon, and they try to destroy Jerusalem. What is different? Satan's present again. Satan has a way of leading us astray. You know, if you go back and you really look hard at when Eve was deceived, he just offered a suggestion, and her mind ran with it. Has somebody ever suggested something to you, and you got to thinking about it, and it got bigger and it got bigger? The boss seems a little aggravated with you today. What'd you do? No. I mean, it's just an example. You know, and somebody says, boss seems a little itchy with you today. What'd you do? And then what do? You think, I haven't done anything wrong. I've done my job. I've been a great employee all week. Can't be talking about me, right? That's what you do, right?
I would be like,
You
okay. Personally, I'd be like, there's no telling what I did, you know?
But don't we often accept the condemnation and begin to worry about it? Just because somebody says something, just because a suggestion's made? You know, if we're innocent, we're innocent. If we're guilty, we're guilty. What the world thinks about it doesn't amount to a hill of beans. Doesn't affect my relationship with God at all if I don't accept that negative thought. You know, somebody says that and I think, no, Satan, that's not true. I don't know how you got that guy to say that, but I haven't done that. And I'm not receiving this condemnation, and I am not going to let you steal this day from me. I'm not worried about it.
Because never let a jerk steal your peace.
Say what?
Because never let a jerk steal your
Never
peace.
let a jerk steal your peace. We haven't said that.
You
for a while.
haven't.
Never let a jerk steal your peace. They're motivated by Satan. And Satan sends them to you to steal your day. Now, you're young, and you think you've got a lot of days. You know, it just seems like I was in high school a few weeks ago.
Have you ever listened to Mike Rowe?
Who?
Mike Rowe.
I don't think-
Dirty Jobs. Dirty Jobs,
Oh, yes,
Mike Rowe.
yes.
He had put something on there that I always remember. There was a lady that said she was disappointed in, you know, his stand on something. And he put, like, I care what you think, you know, basically, you know, I don't, you know, he says it's shocking that you would think that I would care how you feel about what I did. And I thought that was the most brilliant answer to give somebody that is just trying to be negative and bring somebody down. And I always remember that, you know, somebody tries to do something, I'm like, do I really care what you think? You know, do I really care your opinion on something? And it gets you through times, you know, when you got people doing it, it's like, I don't care what you think. You're not important to me. You know, you're not going home with me, so I don't care.
You guys haven't seen it yet, but about a month ago we bought a new car. All of our cars had 200, 300,000 miles on them. I don't like to go running around to Florida or wherever, and there are 200,000 cars, so we bought a new car. Couldn't finance it. Couldn't finance it. Guy came back, he said, nobody wants to loan you the money. I said, what's my credit score? He said, well, one of them's 850, and there's a couple in the 820s.
That happened to her. She tried to get went down to Home Depot, tried to get a to get a washer, and they wouldn't approve her. And her credit score is in the 70s, 80s.
I said, 850? That's perfect. What?
That's the top of the market.
That's the top of the market. He said, I know. And I said, what's going on with this? He said, well, have you ever had a mortgage? I said, yeah, for about 5 years. I paid it off about 25 years ago. Well, we don't have any record of you making payments. I said, what? He said, well, we need a record of you making payments. I said, all my charge cards are paid off. I pay them off at the end of every month. I said, well, and I was mad. Oh, it made me mad. So I just wrote him a check and drove the car home. And then I started getting these things from the finance company saying, we are sorry we could not loan you the money. Well, I typed out a letter to them saying, if you had really checked, I make payments every month to my power company. I make payments every month to my propane company. I make payments every month to my phone company. My electricity's still on, my phone is still working. I said, I have a lot of history of making payments and I had never had any of my utilities cut off. I said, you just don't want to do business with somebody that's not going to mortgage their lives to you. You want me to pay all that interest for 60 months and you look at my record and you see that I'm not doing it. So, I'm not receiving your condemnation. I don't care. I wrote a check and drove the car home. I don't need you. And I wrote it in all capitals. Bold print. Now, I probably shouldn't have responded like that, but I did not receive, for about 2 hours, I was furious. My heart was beating too fast. I was mad. And then I thought, I'm not receiving this condemnation from these idiots. Just because I'm not going to buy into their financial system, that's not my fault. They're the losers, and I gave it up. That's how we have to handle it sometimes. The world does things that make no sense whatsoever. But the bottom line is, I don't have to receive it. I don't have to allow it to change my life. I don't have to allow it to wreck my day. Let's say something.
Oh, no, I was just scratching my head, sorry.
You will see the car, but we're
Yeah.
kind of keeping the mileage down on it right now. But you will see the car. It's a beautiful car, 21,000 miles, and it's a 2021, and I got it for about $25,000 cheaper than a new Explorer would
Wow.
be today. Because it's got got 5 years on it, and it's got 21,000.
Yeah.
That's why I kept getting.
And they wanted to get it off the lot, so they made me a deal, and
If you want it, show you one.
I'm not hopped in mortgage to the loan company for the next 60. I gotta get that money back in my savings account, but it'll get back. Don't let the world steal your peace. They're a bunch of jerks. I'm not gonna receive their condemnation. All right. 28. Question, who will come? Who's gonna come to Jerusalem to worship Jesus Christ? In 28.
In what? 28. I thought he was saying 28. I was like trying to figure that one out. Okay. Many people,
Yeah.
from all the whole world, the whole
The
base
whole
area.
world, is going to come to Jerusalem to worship Jesus Christ. The whole attitude's going to be different. Satan is not going to be there trying to get people to hate the Jews, hate Jesus, hate us. I don't know if you know it or not, but we're not real popular out in the world. They want to do worldly stuff, and even if we don't preach sermons to them, they look at us and they feel condemnation. condemnation, because the Holy Spirit in me flows out to everybody around me.
Have you ever watched the street preachers? The street preachers? Have you ever seen anything on the street preachers?
Oh, yeah.
I am just amazed at how calm they keep when these people are out there just yelling stuff at them, and and they come right back with, and the people leave. I mean, they don't have any weapon against them, and they leave after they're screaming, or they'll just stand there, and the only weapon they have is to scream in your face, and it's sad and hilarious at the same time.
Yeah. Because the Spirit in them is going to strive with the Spirit in me. You cannot walk into a room with the Holy Spirit and not make a difference. I don't know how many times I've walked into a barber shop and everybody somebody was talking, and all of a sudden they got quiet. Barber shops are famous for raunchy jokes. I would walk in, some people would know that I was a minister at the time, and some people didn't, but when you walk in with the Holy Spirit, the whole attitude changes. He takes control. You don't have to preach a sermon. You don't have to beat them over the head with a 10-pound Bible. You just have to smile and be there. And when things get tough, like with COVID, they corner you at the JC store and start asking you questions because they're scared. And we're at peace. How long did you toss and turn and worry about COVID?
I enjoyed myself. I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee and just was like, okay, it hasn't changed anything. I enjoyed staying home and not going anywhere personally.
I started that joke a day thing. I had fun during COVID, and it was kind of quiet. The world stayed away from me.
Yeah.
I was in my garden, I was in my woods, I was shooting squirrels, I was having a good time.
Unfortunately.
I was still working throughout that whole thing.
It was a little stressful for her because she was working and she had to have a mask on.
But you were in a nursing home where a lot of sick people.
Actually, I'm still going through that. It's
Yeah,
back
well.
again.
Me, I was out in my garden listening to the birds.
Mhm.
So I had it better than you did. But it was tough. I mean, if you're in a situation like that, you're seeing people suffer, it's going to affect you. But you have to keep your eyes on the Savior. You have to keep your eyes on God. Because He took care of us. He just took care of us. All right, 22. Question was, why will they come?
To seek the Lord.
Okay, some people say entreat, some versions say pray to. What's the definition of prayer?
Definition.
Talking to God, or
Having a conversation with God, talking to God. Now, sometimes we look at it as something spiritual, and it is spiritual. But have you ever heard an eloquent prayer? I'm sure God's sitting up here scratching his head saying, you don't talk like that on Monday. When I pray, I just talk to God.
usually mine are like, really? You seriously? Okay, we'll deal with this. Let's go.
And if you're ever in a Pentecostal church, they use all the these and thous. They pray spiritually. They use the King James verbiage. And they're comfortable. Well, I'm comfortable with it too because I grew up in a Pentecostal church. When I read the King James Bible, it seems more spiritual because I was first exposed to it in a Pentecostal church, and they used only the King James Bible. But I've also come to realize that today's youth doesn't click with that these and those. They do a lot better with modern English. A good translation of modern English, not what's that other thing called when it's somebody's opinion? You got a translation that goes back to the original documents, and you got it can do. People are going to go to a tree or talk to Jesus. The Bible says prayer, but prayer is just talking to God. It shouldn't be just as natural as talking to me. When we start trying to make it sound holy, we become hypocrites because we're not holy. We're putting on a show that God does not need. It does not make us. It does not make Him feel warm and fluffy because we change the way we talk in church rather than the way we talk. They're going to come and they're going to talk with Jesus, and they'll talk with us. We'll be there too. It's going to be our city. And in 23, who will lead them?
The Jews?
Jews. Okay. Where does that leave us? Will be the Jews. Who are the Jews? They're the children of God. Who are
The
we?
chosen.
We're the children.
Chosen, yeah.
Now, Romans says it, Paul says it in Romans a little different. He says, they are the vine and we are what?
Branches.
Grafted in.
Oh,
We are just as much of the
Grafted.
vine. It's interesting, we're just as much of the vine as the Jews are, except we're still us. Have you ever seen that tree in the seed catalogs in the spring? It's got 5 different kinds of apples on it. It's got yellow ones.
I have one of them. I have one of them, but it does not have all the. I bought one, planted it, but it doesn't have all the different ones. So it's
Well, one
really
of the branches might have died and got replaced by something else. But the bottom line is, I had one and it had all 5 kinds of apples. So you got the trunk and you got the mother tree, and then you've got the ones that are grafted in. And they produce apples, but they produce their own kind of apples. They're still individuals. And that's the way it's going to be. We're going to be just as much a Jew as the Jews are, but we're going to be our version of it, and God is going to allow us to be individuals. It's not going to be a puppet show. All right, got to go upstairs.